So, yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us again in today's session. So, probably most of you are always present in our previous WSI webinars, like product collaborations and new offerings. So, for those still new in Azure, just to begin, so Azure offers a very broad platform. So it's about both IaaS and PaaS, and these two works together. So for those not familiar with IaaS term or PaaS, it means an infrastructure as a service and a platform as a service. So you can see on my slide. So you can provision any of these blocks anytime you need, and it's self-service anywhere, 24 by 7. So just keep in mind that you pay for what you use, so you can get more or less, and you can fully automate everything. So what of the services offer is one of the service it offers is the desktop virtualization. So we all aware that virtualization is helping organization address many business needs around flexibility, security, compliance, and employee specific requirements. However, deploying and managing an on-premise virtualization infrastructure, especially for desktop scenarios, can be complex and costly for IT and the business. So Windows Virtual Desktop is the comprehensive desktop and app virtualization service running in the cloud, and it offers organizations an option to optimize their desktop virtualization experience and leverage the power of the modern cloud. So yeah, Azure Virtual Desktop is a Microsoft virtualization service and delivers convincing value under one roof. So with partner modern digital workspace, like you can see here, one of these Citrix. So it's built on best of breed solutions from other technologies of other partners. Sitting at the core of virtualizing Windows 10 desktops in Azure, Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop, a new Microsoft 365 entitlement that makes cloud desktop virtualization easier than ever. Azure Virtual Desktop can provide best user experience because it allows users to connect from any device like Windows, Linux, Mac OS, Android, and so on. So it should be no surprise that Windows devices are advantaged because it can do more with Windows devices. So you can see that there are two Microsoft Core service you will notice on this page, the Microsoft 365 or M365 and Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft engineers is working hard to make sure that customer get the best experience possible when they use Microsoft 365 and Teams in a virtual deployment. There are three security advantage which belong to the Azure Virtual Desktop. First is the attack surface is reduced because they use reverse connect technology. Essentially, that means they don't open inbound ports to VM, so there are fewer places for bad sectors to attack. And second, the ability to define role-based access, meaning the customer can parse out administration tasks and also protect their most sensitive user groups and workloads, even in a multi-session environment. So user sessions are isolated. So if you really want to know more about Microsoft Azure security, so you can visit and check their compliance site. So Microsoft Azure is the trusted cloud, so and it has more certifications than any other cloud provider. So they want to make sure 100% you are the only one who accessing your data.
Hi, Joven. So we have a question here from Indra, Mr. Janus Barinan. Okay, so according to he's asking if its competition is AWS Workspaces.
Yeah, I think not only AWS, but also other cloud provider, like let's say Google Suites. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the answer, Sir Janus. Okay, you may now proceed.
All right. So Azure Virtual Desktop will be more efficient and simpler for your customers to use because for a start, it's one service for both desktop and remote app. So admins only need to learn one service because it is one of more service in the Azure family, the admin will be familiar with Azure by exploring its set of management tools and other related services. So Microsoft Azure, okay. So hold on, let me skip that slide. All right, so you can the first economic benefits for infrastructures, you can have a Windows 10 experience at multi-session cost. So with the licensing terms, hold on. Okay, so another key benefits of virtual desktop is you don't need to purchase Windows Server license. So for your session host VMs. So for on-premise customer that already have Windows Server license with software assurance, so they can leverage or use or extend that license in cloud like Microsoft Azure. Uh, this is a big cost savings and the combination of reservation instance. Are you familiar with that? So reservation instance meaning you reserve the compute cost for a specific time, for example, 1 year or 3 years. Then a combine of Azure hybrid benefits, meaning you will use your existing Windows Server license with software assurance to use in a virtualized environment. So meaning you will only pay for your reserve infrastructure, meaning the host environment. Okay, so maybe you are not familiar with, or maybe you're probably already entitled to Azure Virtual Desktop use rights with the license already owned, such as Windows E3 or E5, or Microsoft 365 E3 or E5. This means that there are probably no incremental licensing costs for you to use Azure Virtual Desktop. This comes in addition to the benefits that results from the eliminating of management infrastructure. This further reduce your labor costs as well. Okay, so I think this is my last slides. So for those who would like to experience and to try something in Azure, you can visit the link here and start signing up with Azure free trial. You'll get 200 free dollar credits valid for 30 days. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so Joven, thank you so much, Joven. But by the way, another follow-up question from Sir Janus. According to him, he is referring to Azure Virtual Desktop. So is it a competition? Is the competition is AWS Workspaces? You're on mute. You need to unmute. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think and I haven't used AWS Workspace, but I think it's also VDI solutions. So I think it's a most likely or more likely a competition or a competition with Microsoft Azure VDI.
Yes,
Okay.
maybe I can comment a little bit more.
Yeah.
We have seen some customers use Amazon workspaces. In the back end, it's actually a Windows Server technology, and that's how they can make it multi-session. But Azure Virtual Desktop is really the only desktop as a service offering that can make Windows 10 multi-session. So from the economy of scale, from the functionality standpoint, we believe Azure Virtual Desktop is superior, and that is the reason we focus a lot of our effort fully integrate our endpoint with to support AWD,
Yeah.
AVD.
Mm. Thank you so much, Sir Richard, for that clarification as well, or for that inputs as well. Okay, so thank you so much for the presentation, Joven. So, guys or team, if you have any questions or any clarifications, you may leave it on the question box located on the right panel of your screen. Okay, so that's Joven for Azure. Okay. So moving on to our next set of presentation, we have Mr. Oliver Fabilia of NComputing to give us more information about how NComputing helps with the integration of your desktops onto the virtual desktop. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to raise your virtual hand or just key in on the chat pane. Okay, Sir
Thank you,
Oliver.
Giovanni. Thank you.
Okay.
Is my presentation already loaded? Not yet. No, Oliver, not yet.
Not
Okay,
yet, sir.
hold on,
Sorry.
hold on, hold on. How about now?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
We can
Okay,
now
good
see your
afternoon,
presentation.
everybody. I see some familiar names and companies. Thank you for this afternoon. We value your time and welcome to our webinar. So as you see in my title page, we are now going to present our solutions for Microsoft Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop, and Remote Desktop Services. So we're offering this solution as a secure, affordable, high-performing endpoint. So it's a very exciting presentation for us. But before I go into the nitty-gritty of the product, we just like to review the previous presentation has given by Joven has presented what is Microsoft AVD and who needs Microsoft AVD. Now, in our presentation, we'll be presenting why NComputing and what's our depth and partnership with Microsoft and how our solutions will work and the new functionalities, the customer user cases, our couple of thin client models that will work seamlessly with Microsoft, and our exciting new product, which we call Leaf Operating System, which I will be presenting later. At the latter part of our presentation, we will see a live demo to be conducted by our colleague, Mr. Sentil. Now, on your screen, you will see our End Computing team together with Mr. Richard, and we're pleased to tell you that this is the first time that we have a guest coming from our headquarters in California. Along with me also is our heading our business for Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa is Mr. Manju. Manju, maybe you could say good afternoon to
Hi.
everybody.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah. Also, later on, you will be hearing from Mr. Sentil, our technical manager, who will be showing the live demo. And unfortunately, Mr. Jesse Pan, our solutions architect, who's based in Singapore, will not be able to join us, but in spirit, he'll be joining us in our webinar. Hi, myself is Mr. Oliver. I'm the country rep for Philippines for N Computing, and good afternoon. Now, we have a keynote speaker. This is the first time for Philippines for the history of N Computing. Allow me to introduce our keynote speaker. He is a alumni of Stanford University. He leads our planning and development for product portfolios and new technology. He has held various positions in terms of being an executive in various companies and related to technology. Without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic to Mr. Richard Sa. Richard?
Thank you for the introduction, Oliver. I actually have been to Philippines once before, several years ago. So I hope I can visit the Philippines after the pandemic. So my role at NComputing, I oversees the entire R&D organization. So my role involving not only managing the developers, but also I focus and manage the technology alliances. In this case, I work very closely with the Microsoft R&D team to make Azure Virtual Desktop become the reality from the endpoint standpoint. I also interface with our salespeople to bring in features and what they see in the market into our product roadmap. So your feedback is very important to us, so we can continue to innovate. Okay, next slide. So if we look at the last 2 years, it has been rather challenging time for many IT staff. If we look at the recent global chip shortages, the movement to working from home, even though the most people are still working from home, in the U.S. we start to see some employee coming back to work. But many large companies they will stay with a potentially hybrid approach. So employee will be working from home or working in the office on a consistent basis. And that is very challenging, from managing their PC laptop. And also, we start to see a proliferation of desktop as a service solution, and most noticeably by Microsoft. We have saw this coming 2 years ago. I think over the last 2 years, they have really bridged the gap to make the product easier to use. So there's a lot of benefit going to cloud. Now, the challenges for IT staff are how do I migrate my on-premise to the cloud in terms of storage and computing resources? How do I keep my data secure in the cloud? And how can I easily scale up and down my deployment in the cloud? So those are the mega trend adoption to the cloud due to the pandemic, due to the chip shortage, but at the same time that presents challenges. Okay, next slide. That's where we see the opportunities. For us, our goal is to provide high performance, easy to use, and affordable cloud endpoint solutions. And with the recent chip shortages, people want to get a PC laptop. It takes a long time. The price has increased a lot. So the question is, how can you leverage the existing um, PC laptop aging and still be able to do high performance productivity work? And this is where our LeafOS solution comes in. It is a software-defined endpoint solution that can repurpose any aging PC laptop into a high performance cloud PC. Okay, and we will get into how we do it and demo and so forth. The other important use case is working from home. A lot of, for example, BPO companies we have engaged with, they have agent working from home. Some BPO companies they ship the PC laptop, but the attrition rate for those agents are pretty high. So there's a lot of IT costs involved. So the concept is now they're shifting, they're looking at ways to use their own BYOD device, but using LeafOS to provide a secure computing environment so that when employee come to the office or when they work from home, the communication pipe, the data, the storage is secure. So any company confidential information will be contained to prevent corporate data leakage. So LeafOS enable that. You can boot to a USB pen drive without touching the underlying Windows operating system. At the same time, everything can be centrally managed. We also have a highly optimized solution based on the Raspberry Pi 4 platform. This is actually one of the benefit moving to the cloud. So storage and the data, those are all compute in the cloud, and that really helped to shrink the footprint for the endpoint all the way down to a Raspberry Pi, type of endpoint. It's a size of credit card, shipping, from office to home. For people working from home, this proved to be a very effective, cost-effective solution while delivering, PC-like functionalities. And it's a fraction of the cost compared to a PC and laptop. And we focus a lot of our effort on the Microsoft Azure virtual desktop. We have to look at the migration journey, right? So when company they have on-premise deployment or they have the traditional PC laptop, how do they move those compute application resources to the cloud? Microsoft, they offer many tools for admin to do that, and also there are many different value-added partners, as Joven have also shown. So we believe, you know, Microsoft Azure Virtual Desktop has all the key elements to make this desktop as a service a reality. And that's just one aspect, right? There's a lot of benefit moving to the cloud. For example, you can mobilize your workforce. If you do it the right way, your data is actually more secure, because rather than spreading in many different decentralized PC laptop, now everything's centralized. You have one centralized area to manage, which is easier. And also scaling up and down your operation becomes very easy. So if you have contractors, peak season for retails, they can easily, create new instance, enable new desktop, and essentially shifting the IT operation cost from the traditional, CapEx to OpEx type of business model, which is very favorable for many companies. Next slide. We have been around for almost 20 years. We started our journey in the education market. I think we were the very first vendor that provide very cost-effective solution for K through 12 and also higher educations. From there, we gradually expanded into different sectors, enable different use cases, support different desktop virtualization platform, and our operation is basically in all the different countries. The R&D, we have US and also Europe. So I manage the team, and also the sales operation basically in every single country. A lot of our IPs are based on many years of proprietary development. So we have a lot of R&D investment into the secret sauce behind. Besides Azure Virtual Desktop, we also have vSpace desktop virtualization technology, the VDI technology to address different use cases. So I think as of today, we probably have the more than 5 million units installed, and ranging from various use cases. So we felt that. Um, it is our responsibility to continue to innovate, so we can benefit our existing and potentially attract new customers. Next slide. So these are just the different vertical markets that that have used our solution. This is our general market presence, and I will talk a little bit more about what we see in AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop. So our general market presence going from finance, healthcare, manufacturing, government, retail, we have seen a very significant pickup in the BPO market. I will explain the reason and the market forces behind it, and also our bread and butter education. And I think if you look at all these sectors, there are some common traits and requirements. They don't want to manage the traditional PC laptop. Um, a lot of times they deploy their computing resources in different locations. So IT admin is really hard to physically visit different sites. So they need a centralized way to manage it. And also in in many of the sectors, this tend to be very cost sensitive segments. So they want to invest in something and it will last for a long time. And this is where NComputing really shines. We provide very easy to use, high performance solution that works very well and also is very affordable. Next slide. So now let's look at AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop. So there are HP, Dell vendors. They provide AVD solution. So why NComputing? I think if we look back in our history, our vSpace solution, which is our homegrown solution for education market, where we have big market share, it's basically based on building on top of RDP solution. And RDP is a Microsoft Remote Desktop Services solution. It's actually very similar to Azure Virtual Desktop. So in a way, we're kind of the industry expert in the protocol. So we know ins and outs on how to optimize the AVD solution. And we're from the technology standpoint, we're official partner from Microsoft, means they have dedicated engineering people. They certify our endpoint solution. And then regularly they provide us with the latest update to their AVD um, binary, so we can incorporate it into our image and basically provide that to our customers. So our solutions is fully qualified by Microsoft. The approach we take is actually very consistent over the last 15, 20 years. The philosophy from my standpoint is I want to provide a very simple and easy to use solution. The admin does not have to, read a 100-page manual to figure out. Inst- Instead, the admin can basically just play with it and learn how to use it. Of course, we have our menu guide and so forth as backup. So easy to use is very important. Um, Powerful means a lot of under the hood optimizations. So we have two different solutions. One is LeafOS, which is a software endpoint solution that can be repurposed, AMD Intel PC laptop into a high performance AVD endpoint. So there's a lot of hood optimization. The other part is NComputing thin client based on the Raspberry Pi platform. We actually work with Pi Foundation, basically the maker of the Raspberry Pi. We work with them to spec up the hardware so it's optimized for thin client specifications. Also, we work with them to optimize the kernel, the firmware image, so that when you run AVD on top, it's very fast. It's very similar to running as if you're running on a PC and laptop. So it's transparent to the user because we want to make it easy. It should just work. Affordability, that's that one of our key benchmark we want to hit. Okay. More secure, if we look at both of our solution, the software endpoint, LeafOS, or our hardware thin client, those are all based on the same operating system, Linux operating system. It's fully locked down, read-only operating system. Um, and the footprint itself, it's I think like 1.5 gigabyte for the full image, right? Compared to Windows, you need 4 gig. So the footprint is a lot smaller. It's based on Linux. The attack surface for malware, ransomware is really minimized, and the fact that it's fully locked down read-only memory, the user, the hacker cannot alter the operating system. It will just get wiped away once you reboot the device. And so we believe this type of endpoint is more secure. You don't have to worry about installing separate antivirus software. So everything is protected, and then we have the centralized patch management to keep your image up to date. Total cost ownership, I think this is what matters to the end customers. If we look at the total cost of ownership, there are really three components. One is the initial acquisition cost. The second one is the ongoing maintenance cost. And the third part, is energy cost. So if we look at the initial acquisition cost, um, and if we look at in the context of, AVD, right, solution deploying desktop in the cloud on Azure, you can reuse your old PC laptop and you can turn that into a high performance AVD endpoint. What I mean by that is because we optimize the code so much so that if you run a PC laptop using the native window application, run AVD, a lot of times that will actually be slow because your underlying window operating system for the PC laptop is slow. It will slow down overall the performance. But if you convert that into our LeafOS solution based on Linux, much smaller footprint. Require less CPU horsepower, require less memory. Um, you can actually run faster, AVD in the cloud. So going from an old aging device full of virus, and it may be Windows 7, you don't want to patch it, you can convert that into fully locked down Linux, small footprint, and also the performance gets better. And the best part is centrally managed. It's so integrated. Okay, so the initial acquisition cost is basically delaying your PC purchase cycle by reuse those devices and make it into a very high performance endpoint. If you really want to get new hardware, then rather than purchasing PC and laptop, which is the overkill for AVD, because all the compute resources are now in the cloud, you can purchase our Raspberry Pi based endpoint. So FCC certify. We have integrated power button, quality of service, warranty. The license is fully, pre-bundled. It just works. So initial acquisition, it's much smaller compared to the traditional PC laptop. Um, and then if we look at the ongoing maintenance costs, it is a big part that I think is really we have to educate our customers to understand. What I mean by the maintenance cost is when you deploy, how do you onboard new users with AVD endpoint solution? And for those new users, how do you provision those devices so that each different user have different functionalities, different applications? How do you perform ongoing patch maintenance if there's some updates? And if the end user is having issues, how can you remotely do diagnostic on that without physically being in front of the user? So all those are very important IT maintenance costs, hidden costs, indirect costs that needs to be taken into account. And with our endpoint solution, we have our endpoint manager. It's called PMC Endpoint Manager. Basically, you can install on Azure or in any location. And the endpoint, once it is connected to it, the admin can remotely manage everything from the browser. And it is that easy and it's very powerful. And the third component to the TCO is energy. Energy's consumption is becoming more and more expensive, electricity becoming more expensive. So our endpoint solution, such as the Raspberry Pi platform, it does not consume more than 10 watts. So that's basically the energy consumption for LED light when it's running full power. Okay, so I think based on all these different combinations, the solution is fully validated, is optimized. Um, the solution is more secure. And if we look at, the total cost of ownership, we help streamline the IT operation for people to get to the cloud with AVD. And end of the day, we help them to slash cost. Next slide. So in the previous slide, I talked about, kind of the NComputing overall market presence. This is specific to the AVD market. Um, um, Customers who have deployed our solutions. And if I look at the big picture, I would say most of the initial deployment are leading by US. Many US companies, they are moving to AVD in a big way. And some of them are driven by um, the government mandate. Some of them are driven by working from home. So we see a lot of organizations, medium to even large organizations, are moving or thinking and have POC to move to AVD cloud. So among the different sectors, so for example, BPO is one of the very sizable market. We start to see a lot of penetration in ABD. And if we look at the BPO market, if we look at the business model, um, they tend to hire a lot of contractors. And because now contractors and employees are working from home, um, they have to be able to provide a holistic solution that they can work securely with good quality of service for the voice anywhere. And also the attrition rate for BPO agents are very high. We heard there are some, 70% attrition rate, meaning if you have 100 agents hired on January 1st, by December 31st, only 30 people left, 70% left. So in this case, how do you get those devices back from those remote agents, and how do you reprovision those devices? And those becomes very, very expensive to operate. So with BPO, we have companies, they use LeafOS to repurpose a fleet of old PC laptop. They ship it to the agent, okay, and then you can remotely provision on the fly. And if the agent attrition, meaning they left the company, they get those back, they can easily reprovision on the fly. Or if they don't return, and we have way to remote lock those device, preventing the data security breach, those kind of stuff. And also BPO companies, they also start to use our thin client to ship out to their agents, because it's a form factor, like a deck of car. It's very small, so shipping is very inexpensive. The other option is they ship a USB pen drive with a Leaf OS. So the agent, they can use their own PC laptop, plug in the USB thumb drive, and it will boot into a secure Leaf OS computing environment. And from there, they can go to AVD. And the benefit is using our PMC endpoint manager, you can also remotely manage that USB pen drive. So patch update, provision how the computing environment should be. Um, and if the agent does not return the USB thumb drive, it's much cheaper option compared to if they don't, return any PC laptop, right? So there's a lot of pain points with BPO company, and there's a lot of benefit using our software endpoint solution and hardware endpoint solution. Retail is also another sector we saw a lot of adoptions. The challenge with retail is they have a lot of aging desktop. There are some customer with thin client using Citrix, but they decide to move to AVD just due to the cost. The functionality is good enough. So we repurpose a lot of their thin clients. And one of the major retail company in the US, they have like 400 different stores, and each store has several endpoint for their employee to check the stock pricing, website and stuff. So onboarding of those devices in the field could be very challenging, but using our solution, onboarding of a new device, it could be as easy as just plugging the Ethernet, get connected to the internet, and everything can be provisioned on the fly without the user touching anything. So that's the level of onboarding we can provide with the zero touch to provision. So many retail companies, they really love the solution because the end user is not IT savvy. They're afraid to let the end user to do the provisioning. So what NComputing provide is a zero touch configuration. Once you plug into the Ethernet, it just works. Government, we also have a lot of tractions in US government. So one of the city, major city, they got hit by ransomware. So some local PC laptop got infected, and they have this mandate to, okay, I have to lock down my, confidential information by moving to Azure Virtual Desktop. And they have a lot of, 3 to 5 years old, Dell HP laptop, and they repurpose everything within 2 days. And each device, they flash with LeafOS to repurpose. That is a one-time process, takes about 2 to 3 minutes. And once the device get repurposed into LeafOS, then the device actually runs faster and fully centralized managed. The other interesting use case for many of the customer is Windows 11. As you know, Windows 11 require special newer PC laptop with TPM support, trusted platform support. And a lot of company, they really don't want to spend that money to migrate to Windows 11. One, the lead time is very long, and also price of PC laptop are pretty expensive, right? Because OEM, due to the shortage, of course they will focus on the higher end model rather than the lower end model. So one of the emerging use case is they want to deploy Windows 11 in the cloud, leveraging their existing PC laptop, OPC laptop. And that seems to work very well. It runs very fast. And in fact, you can run the Windows 11 in the cloud with our RX 420 as an endpoint. It works very, very nicely. Education, digital transformation. So PC, laptop, going from traditional to the cloud. Manufacturing also, those are the harder to reach location. They just want to deploy and never touch it again. And also many SMB companies that doesn't want to invest in PC laptop and just spin up in the cloud and using Windows 365. I forgot to mention Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 essentially is based on the same technology, but the difference is how Microsoft charge. Azure Virtual Desktop basically the organization need to um, spin up their VM images they need to manage and their value added partners that can help them manage. But if it's based on your consumption. If you don't use as much, but you keep those virtual machines on, you pay for it, right? Windows 365 is a little bit different. It's based on flat subscription price. So it doesn't matter how much you use it. It's a flat monthly subscription. And based on what we have seen, larger organizations, they tend to be a little bit more tech savvy. They would choose AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop, for the deployment because they believe they can control the sizing, with third-party help, and also just the number of people they deploy. Basically, the economy through larger deployment, they can save more money that way. But for smaller organization, SMB who may not have the IT sophistication, they prefer a flat fixed cost. So that's a Windows 365. We support all that. Okay, next slide. Okay. So I think that's kind of the big picture. So I will be around. So if you have any question, for the Philippine market, you want to find out something about the US Euro adoption, feel free to ask any question. I will stick around.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Richard. I'll take over. Thank you. Good afternoon again, everybody. This is Oliver. So, to continue the presentation, shown on the screen is our whole portfolio in terms of the platform and in terms of the endpoints, but we'll be concentrating on our Microsoft offerings and compatibility relative to the previously discussed thin clients. And later on, we'll be discussing our unique product, which is Leaf Operating System. We'll also be touching briefly on our how to manage everything in terms of the endpoints, and we call it PMC. Now, in the screen, you will see the graphical representation of how our device works in terms relative to AVD. It's easy to use. It's already very secure. It has a built-in firewall, gateway DMZ in terms of AVD. And later on, we'll be elaborating on this one. And probably later on, you will see a live demo that you could appreciate the technology. Now, as previously mentioned, we work closely with Microsoft. If you would like to check the Azure Work Marketplace, we have already been announced there as a partner of Microsoft for the platform AVD. So feel free to visit the site, and you will see the product details of our collaboration with Microsoft. Now, our RX series for AVD, it comes in two types, which is the RX 420 RDP and RX RDP Plus. It's very easy to understand. Basically, it's plug and play. Just add a keyboard, mouse, display or two, because one of our models, our RX 420, the one shown on the screen, is already native display for dual monitor, dual HDMI out of the box. As long as your AVD is properly configured, it's out of the box and minor configuration, it will work seamlessly well with AVD. Together with our Pi Management Center or PMC, which manages the device, this would really bring a lot of benefit to organizations, especially the IT. Now, for compatibility, our RX series for AVD, which as you see in the screen, which is our RX RDP Plus single display, and RX 420 RDP, which is dual display, works and already in the firmware works with Spring 2020 and Fall 2019 Microsoft Azure Virtual Desktop releases. We support multi-factor authentication for added security, remote app programs in desktop, it works well with that. And we offer regular interface or display and also our kiosk mode for auto login. For best user experience, we support H.264 encoding. And as I said, it's available in native single and dual display with independent screen rotation. We have a comprehensive compatibility with numerous USB devices in terms of storage and audio, particularly for webcam and headsets. However, the local Chromium browser support, which is we built into the device, is only available in our dual monitor model, which is RX 420 RGP. So if you're looking for a local Chromium browser, apart from the AVD session, it's already available in the RX 420 RTP. Now, next in line is our Leaf operating system. As you can see on the screen, we have been promoting this extensively this past few quarters. This takes the VDI experience to a new height. It shifts your IT strategy towards greater business resiliency, especially during the pandemic, wherein a lot of organizations are looking for ways to really adapt to the pandemic. This is our offering that will really solve a lot of problems and challenges for the industry. Now, Leaf operating system is a secure endpoint in the form of a software or an operating system. It's based on Linux or open source. It's specially crafted for various connectivity platforms such as Microsoft AVD, even Microsoft Remote Desktop, our very popular vSpace platform, and our own Verde Remote or Verde VDI platform. On top of that, we have integrated three useful applications we could use out already immediately. Our Chromium browser, wherein you could already browse the internet or go onto your Office 365 without even going into the platform of, for example, AVD. We have also integrated Microsoft Teams and even Zoom for communication. So these applications are already running on top of your ready connectivity to the various platforms that I mentioned. Now, there are 3 points of benefit for this Leaf operating system. Number one is it's considered as a bring your own device benefit, wherein with the use of a USB stick, an 8 GB minimum of USB stick, properly configured and installed Leaf operating system on that one, you could already boot from the Leaf operating system from that, and you could transform your uh, PC laptop as an endpoint, a powerful endpoint, which you could connect to the various platforms or virtual desktop environment that I mentioned in the previous slide. Not only that, you could even use your legacy desktops and laptop. You could extend the life of these PCs and laptop equipment and repurpose them to make them sort of a powerful endpoint or thin client. It's fully locked down, as previously discussed by Richard. It's fully locked down based on open source, wherein if a person will be using it, there's no fear of getting hacked because it's a fully uh, secure system based on open source. And with our PMC device management software, this adds value to your proposition if you're a proponent of the technology of ours. This will be adding value to your initiatives for example, work from home or any initiatives which will go to the direction of VDI or virtual desktop infrastructure. Now, scenario number one on your screen is like what we mentioned earlier. With the use of a USB stick, you could already install Leaf operating system on that one and plug it on a PC or laptop and boot it from there. You will now be experiencing a purpose-built environment that is catered to various connectivity such as Microsoft AVD or Microsoft Remote Desktop and other platforms. But more importantly, in the build of the Leaf operating system, you already enjoy Chromium browser, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom. It's very secure and easy to use, and ready connectivity is available for the ones that I mentioned. At the same time, we support various USB peripherals, particularly headsets, webcams, printers, etc. Another scenario that you could utilize it, for example, if you don't want to use thumb drive to boot, you could already install natively the Leaf operating system to any repurposed desktop or laptop. Thereby, you don't necessarily have to boot from USB anymore. So it's already your legacy desktop or laptop will now be transformed to a powerful thin client. Again, we'd like to emphasize it's a fully locked down endpoint device because it's based on open source and it already supports VPN. So for any need for VPN, it's already integrated as a feature in Leaf operating system. And we would like to also emphasize that we support Microsoft's AVD's Spring 2020 and Fall 2019 Azure Virtual Desktop releases, fully compatible not just in Leaf operating system but in our previously mentioned thin client models. And we support multi-factor authentication, best user experience courtesy of the H.264 encoding. We support native single and dual display, both in our RX420 model and even our Leaf operating system. Now, PMC is our management suite that is works in tandem with our devices from our thin client, our Leaf operating system build, wherein it will be used to manage, monitor, and deploy our endpoints. Uh, it's easy to understand. It's a very very seamless interface, web-based, and you could always install it in your network seamlessly. And it's up and running in a matter of hours, not weeks. And thereby you could use it immediately, especially for those need for transitioning quickly to AVD and even our devices. Now, another use case we'd like to emphasize is the market of BPO, wherein there are several needs for customization, such as Avaya, Cisco, AnyConnect, and any other WebRTC application. We're happy to say that Leaf operating system can be fully customizable for any need for those platforms, aside from the ready-build application in our firmware for AVD. So if you have any customer or if you're an organization who's needing any customization, especially towards Avaya or Cisco AnyConnect or any WebRTC application, feel free to approach us. We'll work closely with you. Just to share, we have one customer in the Visayas area and Mindanao area, wherein they have a requirement of running a soft phone, an open source soft phone. We are now in the process of integrating that soft phone application in the Leaf operating system. So for any need, we're more happy to collaborate with you and also to discuss further for these types of needs. Now, to summarize, Leaf operating system is a very powerful virtual desktop endpoint and to meet very demanding workload. We integrate already VPN for any endpoint requirement for 802.1 support, depending upon the device. We fully support that. It's fully compatible with Microsoft AVD and also with remote desktop services. Again, we'd like to also work with you if you have any need for customization, especially if you are in the call center or BPO industry. We are offering you a very convenient way to do computing, especially in transforming your devices seamlessly to the AVD platform with the use of either a thumb drive or repositioning them totally to be a thin client. And if you want to test drive Leaf operating system and also our devices, for Leaf OS, we offer a 30-day trial. You could download it. But for the devices of RX 420 and the other model RX RDP Plus, feel free to approach WSIs, courtesy of Giovanni. You could contact him. We could always do a POC with you.
Sir Oliver, good
Yes, sir.
afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, we have some questions in the chat box. So, question here from Sir Conrad. Can we use remote support application like Anydesk or TeamViewer to do remote support for using and computing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can answer that. So PMC, we actually have our own building shadow feature. You don't have to install any application, and you can shadow from PMC to device in anywhere. So if you have an end user working from home or a user working in a company, the admin can use PMC, basically using browser to access PMC to shadow into the session. This proved to be very, very useful for remote IT assistance.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Richard. By the way, Sir Marlon, Sir Richard already answered your question. Okay, Sir Oliver.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. To close my presentation, we do have, by the way, you could get this copy of the presentation through WSI, some parts of it. But on the screen, we have some industry user cases, some samples where the solutions benefit. But what is important, and we'd like to emphasize that our solution works well with Microsoft AVD, especially for the listed industries shown on the screen, higher education, finance, utilities, engineering, manufacturing, or government and retail. So we're very excited to really work with you, our partners, and even our end users, guests this afternoon. Feel free to reach out to us. But before we end, we'd like to pass on the microphone to my colleague, Mr. Sentil, for a very informative live demo. Sentil?
Thank you, Oliver. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. All yours, Sentil.
Yes. Thank you, Oliver. Good afternoon to all. Let me share my screen. Okay. Thank you for joining. So on this live demo session, I just want to give you a small brief on what this setup is right now. So I have PMC running on my network, and then there are two devices. One is software solution, that is Leaf OS, and then the hardware thin client, that is RX 420. So I have a Microsoft AVD account for the demonstration. And then now the PMC, the beauty of PMC is it can be also hosted inside the Microsoft now AVD cloud. So either you can deploy it on premise, or you can also deploy it the PMC inside your Azure virtual infrastructure. So PMC, we provide this as a virtual appliance. So it is very simple to spin up and then configure the PMC. So straight away, I'll go to the browser where I have opened the PMC. So as soon as you log into PMC, so this is the dashboard which shows the complete information about your endpoint solution details. So currently I have, as I said, I have two devices which shows online. One is RX 420 and then LeafOS devices. Apart from that, it shows the last event of the devices what we have done. And then on before going to the devices, I'll go to device profile. So in device profile, it gives you a complete manageability on creating your own customized profile where you can preset the configuration of device settings, and then based on whether it is Leaf OS device or it is a RX 420 device, and we can just preset of your own customized device profile. And once you have created your profile over here, just simply click on create and then start, give a name and then choose whichever model you want to create a profile, and then I'll choose RX, and then I'll choose RX 420 RDP, and then I'll choose the version, create. So here one profile is created. If I want to do any customization on that, I can go and click on the settings icon where I can start configuring what kind of client I need to configure, what kind of connection it has to do. All the settings I can do it, and then once this profile is saved, this profile can be pushed to all the devices which are all connected or the PMC. So next is on administration. So on administration gives a complete control on managing your PMC setup. And then there is an interesting setting where you can see the files. So where you can upload your firmware, all the device latest firmware, and then your certificates like security certificates, your Wi-Fi certificates, all the certificates you can upload it over here. And like wallpaper, if you want to have your customized wallpaper for each device desktop, you can set it up over here. So once you upload those files over here, then these files can be as a system administrator or as a PMC administrator, you can push the firmware from once you upload it to the PMC. From here you can push the firmware to all the devices. Let me go to devices now. So
Senthil,
inside device, yes. Yes,
Senthil, somebody asked a question on the shadowing. No, so can you just show the shadowing, once, and then we can move on?
yeah, yes, right. Just I'm just moving to that part. So here on the devices, so here you can see the groups. So right now I have a group over here where I have two devices, it is listed, and then it is inside this group. So same way you can create multiple groups if you have more number of devices running at multiple branches or different locations. The PMC admin can create multiple groups and then allocate those devices, the endpoint devices into that group, so that as a PMC administrator, it will be easy to manage based on the group, so that if you want to push a specific updates or configuration to a specific group, it will be easy while you, create multiple groups. So here you can see two devices which is listed over here, and then you once you select on this device, you have multiple options where now you can see like reboot, shutdown, update firmware, and then apart from that excuse me. So here you can see multiple icons. So this view, it gives you a complete information about the device information. And then on the settings, same wise, like you can configure the device settings over here. And then if you want to store this device setting into a profile, you can directly save. You can choose this save icon to store this device as a profile. And this is to get your device support report if there is any issue or anything need to be debugged. As a PMC admin, you can directly collect the device support data from the PMC itself. Just you can now request for a troubleshooting information, then automatically it will generate a file, and then you can start downloading. So now I'll go to the last option, which is view. Screen shadowing. In general, the screen shadowing takes maximum 30 seconds to connect. So within 30 seconds, we should be able to connect.
Just for the audience here, so the endpoint and PMC, there's very small heartbeat communication every 30 seconds. So if you initiate a session from PMC, it will take at most 30 seconds for the endpoint to see it. So it's pretty much a real time.
Thank you, Richard. Now I have connected to the RX420 device. So just for a quick demo, I have already logged in with my AVD credentials over here. I'll just log off this and then I'll show the device setup. So once I go to the device settings, so same way, whatever we are configuring from the PMC side, all the settings can be directly also configured in the device side. So here you see the multiple options in general. You see the client mode. So based on the VDI, whichever platform you want to connect, you can choose over here. And then on the connections, you have options like the Azure Virtual Desktop releases. Like if you are running with the 2019 fall 2019, you can select over here. Right now my setup is with Spring 2020, so I have selected Spring 2020 option. And then inside peripherals you have a complete control where you can manage your customized peripheral option. Like if you want to restrict the mass storage device, like your flash drive, USB flash drive need to be disabled at the client end, you can do this over here. This gives you a complete control on managing your a device end or a device connected peripheral devices. Apart from that, in the network, so you have multiple options over here. So as we have told with our presentation on the VPN, so inside network, you have the VPN option where you can enable VPN, and then we have the all on the VPN platform wise, all the popular VPN dialer options are available over here. So based on your infrastructure, whatever VPN you have, you can select over here, and then you can start configuring your VPN setup, and then can connect to your VPN infrastructure. Then you have test option where this gives you a complete testing of your network tools, where as a PNC admin or a system admin, the device network status can be completely tested with this test options. Then now I'll just go back. I'll just connect to the Azure virtual desktop.
Hi, Sir Shintil. Good
Yes.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from the chat box.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so from Marlon Sanchez, can we assign groups or org to a specific internal IT or admin?
You mean the admin access group?
Uh,
The admin want to the PNC admin want to set multiple their juniors to have a separate account to log in PMC, and then in that way you want, is that the question?
in a multiple tenancy scenario.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, Richard, you can answer.
yeah. So PMC, we support LDAP integration, so we can provide role-based access. So let's say if you have multiple admin in the organization and you have one master admin with other regional admin, the master admin can assign roles, different roles. So roles can be groups, can be policies, so that they can only manage a subset of those items. So PMC, it's based on single organization. It's not based on multi-tenancy, meaning you can have multiple organization. But we have seen MSP providers where they provision different groups, and each group represents a company, and under the company you can create subgroups. So we have seen MSP provider have one instance of PMC, and then manage several different companies through this group hierarchy. So I
Okay.
hope that answered your question.
Another question from Sir Janus Barinan from Indra. Is MFA support only using M365 or we can use MFA from third-party vendors?
So I think whatever Azure Virtual Desktop supports, as far as I know, Azure has built integration to, for example, AAD or MFA using what is it, ADFS. So we support that. There are companies using SMS using the mobile phone or use the Authenticator app. We also support that. But if your question is if the AVD support logging from the Okta, single sign-on, I'm not sure. We haven't come across those use cases yet.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Richard. Sir Senthil, you may now proceed.
Thank you. So now I have logged in with my AVD account. So you can see the listed published applications. Now I'll start my Windows 10 desktop session. Yes, I got connected to my AVD Windows 10 desktop session. So now you can see I'm working on it. So I'll open some pictures for you, and that's a PDF. So where you can so it is the experience, even though even my session is connected open now over a VPN session. So still you can see it is very the performance when I scroll down, it is very quick and then fast. I'll just close this. So so you can same way you can run your multiple Windows applications over here. And now I'll just disconnect this, and then I'll show the Leaf OS. Okay, I got disconnected. I'll just close this RX 420 RDP session. Now I'll go to the Leaf OS.
So again, so every action in PMC, the endpoint will try to, in the heartbeat, you will communicate to find out if there's any update. So it can take maximum up to 30 seconds for the endpoint to receive it, or it can be right away. Depends on when during the heartbeat the PMC action happens.
Thank you, Richard. So now, as we are talking about the local applications with the Leaf OS, right now I have now I'm in local application mode. So I'll just run the Teams. So yes, I have logged in with my account, and then you can see the Teams is running on this. I'll just close this. I will exit the client mode, local application client mode. I'll go to the settings. So in Leaf OS, so if you the GUI is as similar as RX 420 RDP. So here on the general, on the operation mode, you have local applications where you can, once you select that, you go to the local applications. So here you have multiple customization on this part where you can enable the local applications, like specific, if you want to enable only Chromium browser or Teams, you can just choose over here. And then here there's an option where you can run as a guest mode. So if you want to run these locally available application inside your AVD session as a guest mode, then you can choose the guest mode option. And then so once you have logged in to your AVD session, you can see the locally available application in your list as a guest applications. So here on the finally, there is another option where the feature, this is installation. So once you boot the Leaf OS with the USB flash drive, so if you want to install the Leaf OS on your local hard disk or on your local drive as a fully locked down device, then you need to go to installation option and then start installing the Leaf OS on your local hard. So this is So currently my setup of LeafOS, this is running on a 5 years old NUC Celeron 2 GB device. So you can see the performance of it is we are able to run all the latest applications using Azure Virtual Desktop. So here the performance also is very good with when a 5-year-old device is with LeafOS optimized performance. It delivers to connect with your latest Windows operating systems. Um, Oliver, I'm almost done with my session. So,
Mm-mm. Sir Sintil, there's a question from Mr. Mardon. Does local apps using Zoom or Teams works well with any webcams plug and play?
sorry, come again.
A question from Sir Marlon. Does local apps using Zoom or Teams works well with any webcams or plug and play?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we test so many different webcams. Most of the samples we have are name brand webcams. It works just like on a Windows computer. Quality is sharp, audio is sharp. Um, yeah, basically it's a Linux computer, not a Windows. And local application give you the benefit of running locally. So you don't have to go through the AVD cloud infrastructure if you want to provide this kind of multitasking access.
Okay, thank you, Sentil. Jobs, do we still have a few minutes for open forum Q&A, or do you want to proceed with the program?
Yes, sir. Actually, I'd like to open the floor now. If you have additional questions, team, you could just please feel free to raise your virtual hand in the Teams, or you just type your questions in the chat pane, or feel free to unmute yourselves and speak up. Okay, so we can answer your inquiries or questions.
Okay, I would like to recognize the presence of Jesse, our solutions architect, who joined us in the webinar right now. So our team is complete. For any questions, we're opening the floor for a few minutes before we proceed with the program.
Yes, so our the NComputing team can answer it live, okay? Ayan. So guys, again, if you have any questions, let us know your inquiries, okay? So Nelly is now flashing now the feedback form. We want to hear from you how tell us how we did, okay? So thank you very much for that informative information and presentation. In computing team, Sir Richard, Sir Oliver, Sir Sentil, okay? Ayan.